master of machines. This episode we visited Ron Klein to look at his awesome Holden collection and even got to drive his A9X Hatchback Torana. And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more awesome content coming your way. If it's car collections you want, then we have found one. This collection belongs to Ron Klein and it's packed full of iconic Holdens. So let's get into it and check them out. Here we are with the man himself, Ron Klein. Ron, what a magnificent collection you've got here, mate. It's great to see it.
Thank you very much. It is, it's a special collection and especially special to me. I love them all, they're great.
Mate, we've got a few cars to get through here. So how about we talk about this one here, this VK Group A, this Blue Meanie.
It's a wonderful motor car. It's the best sounding V8 for a car with a single exhaust pipe that you'd probably ever find. This was the first car that I actually purchased, Glenn, that was away from Toranas, and I got it in about 2007, 2008, and I bought it from a guy in Newcastle who had fully restored it, and it's been in my collection ever since, and I get it out and drive it and have just a lovely time with it. It's a special car. It's got a pretty lumpy cam in it. It goes really, really well, incredibly comfortable with the Shield seats. They're beautiful to sit in, and the cloth interior is a nice change from the Toranas, which are all vinyl. It's a lovely, lovely motor car. Great fun.
Ron, I'm getting excited, mate. An LX Hatchback Torana. Tell us about this beautiful machine.
Glenn, it's a lovely car. It's a 1976 LX L31 M21 car, so it's a genuine 308 4-speed. I'm told, and I certainly don't know for a fact, but I'm told by people who are more knowledgeable than me about Toranas that this is in fact rarer than an A9X hatchback. They made a lot of 253 manuals and they made a lot of 308 autos, but they didn't make a lot of 308 manual hatchbacks. So it's a rare car. I like it a lot primarily because it's such a fantastic colour. It's been beautifully restored, and the Mandarin red is just a really out there, alive colour.
Probably the best colour.
So I went and bought this car. I brought it back to Melbourne. I realised just how much of a restoration it was in need of. It went to a panel beater, Nathan Rich, up in Ballarat, who did the work for me, all the body work for me, and did a magnificent job. He really did do a beautiful job. He's a great craftsman. The car had its original engine and still does today. That lasted about another 3 years after the paint was done, but sadly the engine passed away, and so we've had the engine fully rebuilt about 2 years ago. It's only done a couple of thousand Ks since. It's a lovely car to drive, really comfortable, very smooth and quiet. The engine's been beautifully built as well. Sounds great. Got lots of get up and go in it. There's nothing not to like about this car. It's a beauty.
So Ron, what do we have here, mate? This looks very purposeful, this machine.
It's a VH Commodore with a 5 litre fuel injected motor which has been stroked to 355, so I think that makes it about 5.8 or 5.9 litres. It handles really well because of, it's got some upgraded suspension in it, but it's also, Glenn, sits a lot wider than the Torana track car I've got, so it goes around corners an awful lot better. It's a lot of fun, and it gets used not all that many times a year, but I love it as a track car, and it's got a few things the Torana hasn't got, like something called power steering, which makes it nice out on the track, and yeah, it's good. It runs really well. It's a good and reliable car.
So there's a bit of retro there with modern technology. And what sort of horsepower does it make?
It was dynoed when I have had the engine rebuilt about a year or so ago, and it was dynoed, and it's up somewhere around the 400 horsepower mark.
So she's healthy?
Yeah, she goes really well. She motors along nicely. I love my track days. I'm not very good as a racing car driver. It's something that I took up later in life, and I don't pretend to be any good, but my definition of a great day out at the track is basically defined by how big the smile is on my face, and also whether I can actually drive the car back on the trailer at the end of the day, because it can get very expensive and very ugly if you can't.
Now, I've noticed some signage on one of the vehicles, Red Sox Racing. Tell us about that.
When I started my market research business, I said to Judy, my wife, that I needed to do something that might make me stand out a little bit from the rest, and the decision I took at the time was that I would never ever go to work and not wear red socks. So that philosophy has remained true today, and the business has been going now for 23 years. So every single day that I go to work, I wear red socks. And as a consequence, in honour of that, if you like, I decided for a little bit of fun that I'd start a racing team, which by the way has got one participant in it, that'd be me. And it's called Red Sox Racing, and it's just a bit of a giggle, just something to have a bit of fun with.
Ron, I believe this is the jewel in the crown, mate. Tell us all about this machine.
It is, Glenn. It's an A9X Hatchback. I guess any Australian muscle car fan, but particularly any Holden Australian muscle car fan would be well familiar with this car and how special and iconic it is. It's a lovely car. There are only, I believe, 99 of them ever made. They say 100, but I believe it was only 99. A magic car. When I started collecting, it was always my dream to have an A9X, and I was lucky enough to be able to buy this one 4 or 5 years ago now. I actually got it through the Shannon's auction process, bought it straight after an auction here in Melbourne. But it's a lovely car. It's in beautiful condition. It's basically unrestored. What you see is what you get. I've done a couple of things to it. I put new carpet in it, and I did that because the carpet had that musty old smell, and it's something that I find rather offensive. So I did go and change the carpet in it, and it's had a little bit of paint on it over its life, but other than that, it's pretty much stock standard. It's had an engine rebuild before I owned it, but it's a beautiful car, and it's so much fun to drive. And of course, as I said, it's an A9X. What else can I say? It's a magic piece of motoring history.
These things absolutely destroyed the opposition on the racetrack, and they did so much, didn't they?
They were just unbelievable up at Bathurst.
And you picked it up from Shannon's. They do have some amazing cars down there, don't they?
They have some very nice cars. In fact, they had 2 A9Xs for sale in the auction that I bought this one at, a jasmine yellow sedan and this hatchback. I always wanted the hatchback because I thought they were more special. So I did buy it down there, and I've got all the cars insured with them actually. So Shannon's look after me on all of the cars, which is great.
Well, mate, what an incredible car. It's been a lifetime dream of mine to actually own one of these cars. It may never happen, but it's so fantastic to see this here in the flesh. And look, you did mention that I might be able to drive a car. I know this is a massive ask, because I know it's probably worth as much as many houses out there, but would it be okay if I drove this car?
Glenn, you'd be very welcome to take it for a spin around the block and let the viewers experience what it's like to have a run in an A9X. I imagine many of them won't have had the chance to do that, and it is magic. And enjoy, take it away and have some fun.
I can't wait, mate. Thank you so much.
That's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You know, some people say to me, gee, you must love your job. You know what I say to them? Yes. Who wouldn't love this? I'm driving an A9X Hatchback, the iconic Aussie muscle car. Probably one of the most iconic when it comes to racetrack performance too. Who could forget Peter Brock winning Bathurst by 6 laps with Jim Richards? And on the very last lap, just to stamp his authority because he could, he just went out and smashed the lap record. What a car. Look, I'm a big fan of the GT HO Phase 3 and U49 Chargers and all those muscle cars. XU1 as well, little giant killer. But these things, I don't know, for me, they're just about at the top of the tree. The minute you jump in these cars, you just feel like you're in a car that means business. It oozes muscle. This muscular steering wheel, the big reverse cowl hood scoop. They look mean, they look tough. You know you're in a car that was designed to go motor racing. The big flares, and especially when you've got a big set of tyres on these things to fill those flares, they look absolutely superb. Effectively, we're driving a car that was designed to go racing. It is a race car that was built for the road, to comply with homologation, to go out and win Bathurst. And that's what it did. You know, the L34 Torana was a good thing. They effectively had more engine modifications because the rules changed in the A9X. And cams changed things so they didn't have to go too crazy from a factory perspective, but they allowed more freedoms. So the race teams could then modify the A9X engine to get what they needed. The L34 had a few Achilles heels. Its differential, they used to brake, axles, Good old Aussie 4-speed gearbox couldn't quite cope with the punishment, especially in racing conditions. When the A9X came along, that was the icing on the cake. Allowed to run a Salisbury diff, heavy duty diff, 4-wheel disc brakes. Now that's a massive advantage in any circuit racing application, but especially for endurance racing. The other thing they allowed them to do too was to run the big heavy duty T10 gearbox. That thing was super tough, very, very hard to brake. You've got to love that. You've just got to love that 4-barrel. Induction noise. Something these cars are definitely not short of. Especially with that big bonnet scoop there. Awesome thing too. People often say, why did they reverse them around? Well, there's a low pressure point at the front of the windscreen. You get a lot of really good air coming in there to make good horsepower, especially at very high speeds at places like Bathurst on Conrod Straight. And that's what mattered with these cars. And that's why I love these things. Pure muscle, V8 muscle. Gotta love it. Can't believe I'm actually driving a genuine A9X hatchback. It's almost surreal. We're talking about a very, very expensive car here. Probably more than half the price of your average house these days. I feel a little bit nervous, but at the same time, I'm enjoying myself. I'm going to take hold of this moment and enjoy every minute of it. To drive the type of car that the legendary Peter Brock had so much success in, for me, is so special. I've always dreamt of owning one of these cars, but the truth is I'd probably never be able to afford one. So I'm very, very privileged and really appreciate being able to drive this machine today. Unbelievable. Stay tuned for the next episode featuring more of Ron's amazing collection.